want to just highlight some upcoming promotions. Jared Wallace, U.S. Paralympic track athlete, will be speaking on February 17th at 7 a.m. And on the 17th of March, Shan Cooper, Executive Director for the Atlanta Committee for Progress. So without further ado, I want to introduce today's speaker, Stephanie Stuckey. Stephanie is CEO of Stuckey's Inc., a roadside oasis famous for its pecan log rolls. The company was founded by Stephanie's grandfather, W.S. Stuckey Sr. in Eastman in 1937 and grew to include over 350 stores by the 1970s. The company was sold in 1964, but is back in family hands and poised for a resurgence. Stephanie received, like myself, undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Georgia. She's got a really extensive resume, working as a trial lawyer. She was a 7-term state representative. She ran an environmental nonprofit law firm. She served as director of sustainability for the city of Atlanta, and she taught as an adjunct professor at the University of Georgia School of Law. She purchased Stuckey's in November 2019 and assumed the role of CEO at that time. Her achievements include being named one of the 100 most influential Georgians by Georgia Trend magazine, and she is a graduate of Leadership Atlanta. She is active in her community, and she serves on several nonprofit boards, including the National Sierra Club Foundation, Earthshare of Georgia, and her local zoning review board. So please join me in welcoming Stephanie Stuckey.
Thank you, Brad, for that introduction. And I have never used one of these before, but this is so cool. I feel like Garth Brooks. So I know I should feel like Britney Spears, but I'm going to do a reference that's more my era. So it's a delight to be here, especially because the Bulldogs won. When we scheduled this, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So I am delighted to be here, and I am delighted to be a Bulldog. I just wish I were a Terry grad as well, but there's still time. I can go back. So as was said in my intro, I have a background in politics. So I am not afraid to just delve into controversial topics. So I'm going to start off with something that's a little edgy. I'm going to ask, how do you pronounce P-E-C-A-N? So if you say pecan, raise your hand. All right, and if you say pecan, raise your hand. Okay, so that plays out the way the national statistics show. The National Pecan Shellers Association actually did a survey, and 70% of Americans say pecan. So if you raise your hand first, you are in the majority. I am from Middle Georgia, so I am with the latter group. I say pecan. So that's my first slide. It's pecan, but I will defer to my grandfather, who used to tell me it's pecan when you pick them, pecan when you sell them. So he would say whatever the person who was buying them would say. So, and yes, I've heard all the jokes when I say pecan. They say, isn't that something you keep to use in the middle of the night? Yes, I've heard that, but I love saying pecan, and I do my best to say pecan. And if I slip up, please forgive me. So what I'm going to do today is tell a little bit about the story of our company and our comeback, and anyone who has experienced tough times, I think a lot of us have in recent years, you'll hopefully commiserate and relate to our lessons of resilience and how this company has somehow managed to survive after decades and decades of really hard times. So I'm going to go through our story, and I'll tell you what we're doing today and open it up for questions. So this is how we started. 1937, my grandfather was actually at the University of Georgia and had to drop out because it was during the Great Depression. And he had to go back home and farm cotton in Dodge County, Georgia. He hated it. And so he was looking for a way out, and Stuckey started as a side hustle. Anyone who's ever had a side hustle, I'm a big believer in side hustles. We started as a side hustle. He got a $35 loan from his grandmother. He borrowed a truck, and he drove around the countryside after he was finished farming all day, and he would buy pecans from local farmers. He would shell them at a local plant, and he would mark up the price, and he'd sell them at this little shed. And one day he got the bright idea that he would make candy. I love it. He didn't know how to make candy. So he ran a mile to our home, his home, interrupted my grandmother during her bridge game and said, Ethel, we need to make candy. And she didn't know how to make candy either, but she recruited all of her bridge game partners, who also happened to be, most of them were her sisters, Hazel, Oreen, Pearl, I love these old-time names, and they went in the kitchen, they figured out how to make candy. So the Bridge Club became the Candy Club, and those ladies helped make candy and helped start Stuckey's. So after a few years of that little roadside shed, he opened the first store. Where's Fred, who's from Eastman? Yay, so you know that location. That's in Eastman, Georgia, and he really started what was the first roadside retail chain, where you would pull over and get gas, something cold to drink. He used to advertise cold water. I love that. People would pull over for ice cold water back then. He had clean restrooms, quick hot snacks, and of course we sold pecan log rolls, which we became known for, divinity, pralines, fudge, all these classic Southern confections. And we sold kitschy souvenirs, rubber alligators, shell statues, and we really were the world's first roadside retail chain. And then we had our first test of resilience. World War II struck, and during the war, everything was rationed, including gas, so people were not pulling over at his stores, and sugar was rationed, so he didn't have his main ingredient. He had to rapidly figure out how to make it, or he was going to not survive. So he had to shut down 2 of the stores, and he started making candy for the troops. So Stuckey's candy was in the ration kits, along with Hershey's chocolate, M&M's, and Wrigley Spearmint gum. So I love that the candy companies in this country were doing their part for the war effort, and when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You needed quick energy if you were fighting, and so we had quick energy. So the great thing about resilience and surviving tough times, and I'm sure all of you have learned this, is that you build back stronger because of a crisis. It may be really hard at the time, but you emerge from it, and if you're going to survive, you emerge stronger and having learned from that experience. So he figured out how to package candy, and he also figured out how to manufacture. When he started, he was just making candy in the stores on site, serving it up in brown paper bags. That wouldn't work for shipping candy off to Europe. So he learned how to package. He made these beautiful packages. So he started to sell the candy in packages to retail stores, and he learned how to manufacture. One of my favorite stories of how he survived the war years was how he got through some of the rationing issues. So if you sold candy to the troops, the government would give you sugar. So he got extra supplies of sugar, and then to get coconut for his coconut patties, he took corn husk, shredded them, and flavored them with coconut flavoring. And that's how he made his coconut patties, and nobody else got coconut during the war, and people would line up for blocks to get his coconut patties. So innovation got him through those war years. Thank goodness the FDA wasn't as strict back then. I don't think he could do that today. Anyone in the food business, you know, the regulations are insane. He could never do that today. So after the war, he really started to thrive. He built back the 2 stores he had to shutter. People are coming back from the war, they're getting educated, they're making money, they're having babies, and what are they doing? They're going on vacation. And back then, in the 40s and the 50s, nobody flew. People vacationed by car, and we were there. And so he started building Stuckey's all over the place. Labor was cheap, construction was cheap, and we really started to thrive. And his candy business thrived. His first big account was Rich's Department Store in downtown Atlanta. Makes me sad whenever I go by that building because I remember going as a kid. I'm not sure if Stuckey's foursome would go today either. And he really started to vertically integrate. He expanded his candy plant. This is in Eastman, Georgia. And what I love about the candy plant is that during the war, he had to employ women because that was the only workforce available. All the men were off fighting. And so he was not only getting his candy made, but he was empowering women, and he was creating a community of women who were becoming economically self-sufficient and also helping support their families. And so after the war, those ladies remained. And their families started getting into the candy business. So there's this rich history in Eastman of us employing women. And so those are the candy ladies. Only male figure in the picture is my grandfather on the far right, and he is smiling like crazy. He also got a trucking company. He was really vertically integrated, and he had a sign company. The sign company is my favorite because if you remember Stuckey's back in the day, we had billboards. We had 4,000 of them on every major highway in the interstate except the Pacific Northwest. And he had so many billboards, he used to lose track of where they all were, and he used to say he had more money in billboards than he did in candy. And he was a huge believer in marketing. Anyone here in marketing? Anyone? Yay! Okay, so he put 20% of everything he made in marketing. So then we had another crisis, the interstate highway system. And a lot of people think the interstate highway system was wonderful, and there were great things about it, but it cut off small town America. Stuckey's was on Route 66, the Dixie Highway, the Lincoln Highway, all of these wonderful roads where you would go through small towns and you would go to places like the Wigwam Village and Weeki Wachee and seeing the underground, the mermaid statue, and it was small town America, and that was suddenly bypassed. And we went from this, that's Route 66, to this. And that really hurt Stuckey's. And this was really a crisis for us. This is when our company could have completely shuttered because our stores were all here. And he had to make a decision about what to do. What he did was he shuttered all those stores and he built new ones. And I love this postcard, traveling on beautiful Interstate 80. Like, who would buy that postcard? I-80 is not that beautiful if you've been on it. But he used this as an opportunity to be resilient and grow back stronger. So he became an architect. All of a sudden, he came up with this design, and he created this slope roof that we're known for and the zigzag carport. He changed the logo. He made it consistent. He got bright, bold colors. And so suddenly he was branding, and you knew when you pulled over, that was a Stuckey's. So he used it as an opportunity to grow back stronger. But he also kept what was unique and special. So that's what I love about what Stuckey's was when he founded it, and what I hope we will be again, is that even though there was branding, there was consistency, there was also a uniqueness. So if you pulled over at a Stuckey's like this one in Florida that happened to be near a fishing hole, you could buy crickets and fish bait and fishing lures, and this one was in Florida, so you see seashell statues and necklaces, and I absolutely love this picture. I put it on Facebook and had a caption contest, and the winning entry was, "This is what happens when you use pecan log rolls as bait." And my favorite story about my grandfather is how he decided where to site his stores. So this picture reminds me of this story because he's drinking a cup of coffee. He would get a cup of coffee, he would get in his truck, he would start driving. You might know where the story is going. When he had to use the facilities, when nature called, that's how far apart he would space his stores. I used to joke with him, if I could only have gone with him, we would have double the number of stores today. And any good business has got to be about something bigger than just selling a product or selling a service. You have to be about creating community. I'm thinking about Southern Company. You're not just providing power, you're providing economic development. You're helping build jobs, you're building communities. And that's what we did as well. We were home of the American road trip. We were building a community around people who love to explore America by car. So what happened to us? Any great story, if you're gonna have a comeback, you gotta have a really bad downfall, and we definitely had a downfall. We had a trifecta of a downfall. We had a perfect storm. So my grandfather sold Stuckey's to Pet Dairy Corporation in 1964, it was a year before I was born. And then we had the Arab oil embargo, so people were not driving because it was too expensive. And then the Airline Deregulation Act passed, And so anyone who works for Delta, that was really good. Suddenly domestic air travel became affordable. So people were flying, people were not traveling by car, and the great American road trip started to decline rapidly, and so did Stuckey's. So fast forward for a couple of decades, Stuckey's is really plummeting. Our stores became porn shops and trucker bars, and even worse than that, they were just completely shuttered. And we lost hundreds of stores. At our peak, we had 368 stores, and we had plummeted to about 100. And then that handsome man is my father, a Terry grad. He is a triple dog, undergrad, Terry, College of Business and Law. And he, at the time, this was in 1985, he was running a company he founded, Interstate Dairy Queen Corporation. He had the franchise rights to Dairy Queen stores on the interstate highway system. Very, very successful business. He was running that, and then the company that bought Stuckey's, so Stuckey's had been victim of a series of corporate takeovers. We were at the time owned by a Chicago railroad conglomerate. I will not say their name, it's like Voldemort around my house, but this Chicago railroad conglomerate, whose name will not be spoken, did not get our kitschy Southern brand that sold rubber alligators and ashtrays shaped like toilets to say, put your butts here, and pecan log. They did not get our brand. And they sold off our real estate, and we were, frankly, subject to lawsuits. The company was in a downward spiral, probably going bankrupt. And they pretty much gave the company to my dad. It was losing money. So what he did was he paired Stuckey's with his Dairy Queens. And he kept Stuckey's alive by wherever he had a Dairy Queen store, he put a little Stuckey's kiosk. So he kept Stuckey's going for 25 years, frankly, because of the Dairy Queen. 2010, my dad sells Dairy Queen to the owner of American Dairy Queen. Does anyone know who that is? Warren Buffett. So he sold to Warren Buffett, and no, he didn't meet Warren Buffett. I was so disappointed. I wanted to meet Warren Buffett, but his signature is on the paperwork, so I got to see that. So he sold to Warren Buffett. He and all his business partners go home. They retire. They're in their 70s at this point. And so they left Stuckey's with 2 people in a cubicle and rented office space managing the accounts that were still alive for Stuckey's. It was about 60 stores. Within a few years, the company started to rapidly decline. They were losing money. The company was 6 figures in debt. November of 2019, I am minding my own business. I am happy in my law world, teaching at UGA, and I get an email from my dad's former business partner. Hi, Stephanie, we haven't talked in like 10 years. Do you want to buy Stuckey's? So, of course, I knew enough to ask for financials. I got them. I consulted financial experts. I consulted 3. 2 said no. I kept going till I found someone who gave me the opinion I wanted. The 3rd said, yeah, you should do this. It's very, very risky, but you're buying a brand. You're buying a trademark. So that's the asset that you're getting. Even though the company is losing money, it's got potential. So you should do it. So I couldn't get any financing for something like this. This company was not doing well. So I put my life savings into buying Stuckey's. I am not your typical, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did an article on when I took Stuckey's back, and they said, heiress, get Stuckey's. I'm not an heiress. I'm not Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton got an actual fortune. I got rubber alligators and pecan log rolls and fading stores, and I had to buy it. So I actually sunk my life savings. I was 53 years old at the time, and I was the exact same age as Ray Kroc when he bought McDonald's. So when people say that's kind of old, I'm like, same age as Ray Kroc. He did okay. So this is how it started. I made a Britney Spears reference at the beginning. I'll get back to Britney Spears. So I got the trademark, and at that point, in addition to the 2 people in the rented office, we had a rented warehouse in Eastman, Georgia, that was full of dusty inventory that had not been moving in years, including cases of Britney Spears t-shirts. Thank God she made a comeback. We sold all of those, made a profit. I had snow globes. I had ashtrays in the shape of states. I had seashell wind chimes, a ton of High School Musical slap bracelets. That's what I bought. and none of that inventory was moving. So, oh, and 3 days after I bought the company, one of the few remaining Stuckey stores, original Stuckey stores with the slope blue roof, only 20 of them were still in operation at the time. Out of 368, only 20 burned to the ground. So that was day 3 on the job. And then I started visiting the stores. We had one in Marion, Arkansas that actually had a hole in the roof. It was hit by a tornado, and I'm convinced that the owners were involved with insurance fraud because they didn't fix this. So I think they took a check and nothing happened. But this moment actually was like my Scarlett O'Hara, I'll never go hungry again moment when I took this picture, because I was literally in the parking lot sobbing. I thought, this is what I've purchased. This is embarrassing. This is not what my grandfather would want. But then I went in the store, and even though the store looks like that, it had all sorts of people in there. You can't tell right there because there was a truck, but once I went in, like, cars started pulling up, people were getting gas, and I thought, oh my gosh, if people are pulling over for this, imagine if we actually spiffed up the place. So that moment actually gave me some hope, and I think you have to hit rock bottom to figure out, like, there's a way out. So I had to really strategize about how am I going to bring this brand back. And I will say, so I did what I used to know from politics. When you start a political campaign, you go on a listening tour. So I went on a road trip, and I went to all the stores. And I will say some of our stores look amazing. We have one store in Johnston City, Illinois, that has a statuary garden, including this Winged Victory in Johnston City, Illinois. It's hilarious. They have all these statues. So we have some really great stores. That one's in Hope Hall, Alabama. It's a wonderful store. So we have some stores that look good. So that gave me hope. And then I started thinking about what my grandfather did. And he wasn't just selling log rolls. He was building community, and he was celebrating the road trip. So I started really thinking about how we're not just selling a product, we are trying to bring back the fun of exploring America. So how is it going? Within a year, we started turning a profit. We went out of 6 figures of debt. We started turning a modest profit. I should have year-end numbers by the end of this week. We will certainly end the year 6 figures profitable. We may end the year 7 figures. So we've really managed to turn it around. How do we do it? We found the healthy business inside of the failing business. The healthy business was the product. We were making money out of selling our pecan snacks and our pecan candies, but we weren't making them ourselves, so we couldn't get the margin to really scale. So we got an SBA 7A loan. We went with the local community bank. Sorry if anyone's here with a big bank. We went with our local Planters Bank in Hawkinsville, Georgia, and we got a loan. I got a business partner who is my distant cousin, R.G. Lamar. He's a 3rd-generation pecan farmer, and the two of us bought a pecan shelling plant and a candy plant in Rennes, Georgia, outside of Augusta. So we kind of made a big bet on manufacturing, and I think manufacturing is coming back in this country, and we decided that's the direction we're going to turn the company. And that was a really nice article that ran in, I think, Food Processing Magazine. Yes, I read that now. But we went from selling our candies to about 60 stores to we're almost in 5,000 different retail outlets now. And the only thing holding us back, frankly, is our production capacity. Anyone in manufacturing, let's talk afterwards, I can commiserate. But we rebranded. We got beautiful new packaging, which took forever. We got merchandise. This is my favorite. The t-shirt says, "Eat here and get gas." My mother is absolutely appalled, but we sold that t-shirt in the 1960s. It was phenomenally successful, so I brought it back. And my mom, because she was so embarrassed, I said, okay, I'm just gonna do a small order, small batch. We sold out in 30 days, and that is our #1 selling t-shirt. We can't keep them in stock. If you want one, let me know. And we started expanding to other stores. So we're not selling just in the 60 Stuckey's locations that are still standing. Of the 60, 20 are freestanding stores. The rest are the stores within a store concept. But we started selling to other retailers who were just selling our product. Anyone who knows Parker's in Savannah, a wonderful chain, I love Greg Parker. They're terrific. So they're putting us in their stores, and we're in state parks, and we're in national chains like Casey's in the Midwest just added us, and we're talking to quite a few. We just got a big order for TA, so pull over at TA, don't go to Pilot, because TA's selling our stuff. And that store that was burning at the very beginning, they just rebuilt, and they're doing really well. I wish they had a big Stuckey sign on the building, but they have the sign out front, and it's doing super well. And what did I do with all that dead inventory? So when life gives you cowboy hats and dream catchers, you make mystery boxes. So I put all that dead inventory into mystery boxes. I added some of our fresh candy and products, and we made almost $15,000 off of the dead inventory. We sold 900 mystery boxes. It was our best-selling item. So I liked this post. This was one of my posts on LinkedIn because I'm wearing a UGA t-shirt, but also I talk about being an accidental CEO, and it was never a journey that I thought I would take, but I realized if you have a passion for something and you surround yourself with people who fill in your gaps, you can do it. And I had to learn from the top down. I didn't have the luxury of many third-generation family businesses where you start as a store clerk and you work your way up. I started as CEO by default. When I bought the company, there wasn't a CEO. So I learned if you buy a company, you can make yourself the CEO. But I figured it out. And I also learned collaboration is the gateway to scale. So more and more we're entering into licensing deals. I absolutely love licensing because you give your brand to someone else, they make it, and they give you a percentage. It's a great thing. So we have Stuckey's Pecan Loggerel beer at Wild Heaven Brewery here in Atlanta. Stop by and have some. There I am learning from the top down. So I really did roll up my sleeves and work in the trenches. That's me working the National Snack and Candy Trade Show, which is the best trade show in the world. They give so many free candy samples. I think I gained 10 pounds that week. But we sold a lot of our product that week. It was a really good week. And practice gratitude and be grateful for the people who stuck with you, even the people at the very bottom. So our warehouse workers have been with us for 5 years in Eastman, Georgia, working in the warehouse. So really, really grateful for them. That's us doing the annual inventory count. So I'm going to close before I take questions with what I stand for. I decided about a year ago I was just going to write out sort of my manifesto of why I'm doing this, and I posted it on LinkedIn, so it's on my LinkedIn page. And last I checked, it got over 1 million engagements, so it's very gratifying to see that people really are responding to what we're doing and the idea of, that brands can make a comeback. So what I stand for. I stand for reviving the beauty and excitement of roadside travel through the back roads and byways. I care about the loss of gourd stands, llama petting zoos, wigwam motels, and peanut statues that lure us out of our cars to explore towns like Ashburn, Georgia, and Cave City, Kentucky. I'm keenly aware that there's only one Howard Johnson's restaurant left, that all the Holiday Inn marquee signs are now museum relics, that many big boy statues sit decaying in vacant lots, and that there are only 20 Stuckey's stores still open. This is personal to me because Stuckey's was founded by my grandfather. Through grit and hard work, he grew the company to more than 350 stores, welcoming motorists to stop for Texaco gas, kitschy souvenirs, and Southern candies. But he sold the company, and hundreds of stores were shuttered in the ensuing decades, turned into porn shops and sad vestiges of family vacations long past. Stuckey's is now back in our family hands and making a comeback. Reviving Stuckey's is about more than making a profit. It's about building community. Pulling over for gas may be the only way some travelers connect with small-town America. Why can't we use that moment to allow them to experience what makes places special and fun? Boiled peanuts, farm-fresh tomatoes, handmade baskets, and local cookbooks. And yes, throw in some Stuckey's classics like pecan logrels, rubber alligators, and redneck fly swatters. Why can't culture be what we find in a roadside stand as much as what we find in a museum? That's what I stand for. So I'm happy to take questions, or I actually prefer comments. I think they're a little more engaging. So anything you want to say.
Thank you for your speech. It was great. One thing I used to, as a kid in the '70s, we go on road trips as a family of 7 kids, and
Wow.
In a Plymouth Fury with my grandmother and parents. And when we stopped by Stuckey's, I wanted to see a novelty type shot glass.
Yes.
Still have that?
We have so many shot glasses. It's insane.
You-
If you want
yeah.
some, we're running a special on them on our website for $19.99. You can get a whole box of them. Yes,
Good.
we sell them. Yes. All those classics, the souvenir state spoons, the souvenir plates, the postcards, all the redneck memorabilia, redneck fly swatters, cedar boxes. Yes, all of that. We still sell it.
I was curious about your digital presence. So really, with manufacturing, with all the challenges you guys are seeing, what attempts have you guys made to be successful on your website, or just how do you sell across the United States?
Yes, so our web sales went up 750% since I bought the company. So yes, especially with COVID. I mean, some of that is a COVID bump, but that increase is higher than the national average for web sale increases for companies. So a lot of that is because we did upgrade our website. We are actually about to upgrade again and get on Shopify. We have not been on the Shopify platform because we were initially on WordPress and we were used to that, but we're transitioning. But the website has been a lot of work, ton of work. We also do LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just got on TikTok. YouTube is a little more challenging, but we're on YouTube. We are really a scrappy comeback brand, and I'm really sorry if there's a consultant in the room. I do not mean to offend you, but we threw away money on marketing consulting firms when we first bought the company. And it's not that they're not good, it's that we had a very limited budget. And they took it all within 3 months. I was completely out of my marketing budget with a firm that I, and so I had to do the marketing myself. And I just watched Gary Vee videos, if you know Gary Vee, I love him, and Simon Sinek, and I just started, Seth Godin, read a bunch of his books. And so my LinkedIn presence went from about 1,000 followers to over 72,000 followers just by being consistent, telling my story, knowing the brand, storytelling. We went from about 500 email subscribers to we're almost at 20,000. So it's just consistency. I still would love to have a marketing firm, but when we can afford it, definitely learn to budget better on that.
Hey, great speech.
Thank you.
Really interesting. And we're related, by the way, a little bit. I'll get into that later with you.
Okay. I'll claim you.
Yeah, right. How are you going to navigate the world of electric vehicles? And do you see that as an opportunity to have charging stations?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. And I drive an electric vehicle and I drive a hybrid. And I started the City of Atlanta's electric vehicle program, which at the time was the largest electric vehicle program in the Southeast. So I know this space very well. Here's the dirty secret I learned. If you are in the fuel business, if you have a convenience store, the fuel company like BP and Chevron, they pay for all that fuel infrastructure. They will pay for your tanks, they'll pay for your canopy, they'll pay for the signage. The electric vehicle companies, with one exception, I'll get to that, they expect you to pay for, not the companies that make the cars, the charging infrastructure companies. If you want an EV charger at your place of business, you have to pay for it. Well, there's actually 2 exceptions. There's one company that if you are in a highly trafficked mall area that doesn't apply to our stores, they'll do advertising and they get revenue from that. But the others expect you to pay for the charger, which can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And roadside retail stores operate on very thin margins. A lot of the stores are owned by a family that owns maybe 1 to 3 stores. And then you get the big companies like Pilot and TA, and it's really interesting. I'm now like on the inside of some of these NATSO conferences, National Association of Travel Truck Stops Operators, I think. But it's the big association for Pilot and TA. And when I'm in the room listening to their CEOs and the conversations, they are heavily, heavily, heavily invested in oil and diesel. They make a ton of money from truckers and diesel. So they really have such a strong profit margin in the oil space, and only 4% of Americans are driving electric vehicles, so they're not moved yet. So the only way we have been able to navigate that space, literally, is Tesla is the only company that will pay for the entire charging infrastructure. And they made it proprietary, so only a Tesla can pull over there. But you have to be on they have a charging desert, so they have spots marked out. And so if you happen to be in one of their gaps in their charging highway, then they will put a charging station at your store. So they've gone into one Stuckey's in Old Fort, North Carolina, and they are installing charging infrastructure in Somerton, South Carolina. So we will have 2 stores with Teslas. And I wish the other charging companies, I'm looking at Southern Company because I know you're investing heavily in EV, we would welcome charging stations. We need help paying for them. Oh, and then there's the power, right? You have to pay and you have to be near a substation, or you have to have a heavy power source nearby. So you can't be in this totally remote area, which unfortunately is where a lot of our stores are located. I'm sorry, that was a little in the weeds, but I get asked that question all the time, and I really spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. I would welcome help. You're really happy you came, right?
So Warren Buffett's #1 rule is lose no money. And you've got intimate view into an example of how they did that. So talk a little bit about what they did poorly or didn't do well in this scenario to where you were able to come in and do effectively what he does, which is buy at a low price and grow it to be successful.
Yeah, I love Warren Buffett. The other thing Warren Buffett does is make forever investments. And that's why we have not succumbed to private equity. Actually, there's numerous reasons. Mainly, I don't want to lose control, but private equity in general wants a quick return on investment, usually 5 years, maybe 10, and then they want to flip the company. Warren Buffett gets it. Like, companies are just like the economy. There's natural highs and lows, and you stick with it over the long term. But lose no money, I actually didn't know he said that. I love that. We actually did lose money for a little bit of time. Right after we bought the manufacturing facility, because we had to put so much money into new packaging, getting new equipment, getting the existing equipment upgraded. So there were a few months there where we were in the red, and I was just cringing. So I think I espouse to that theory, yes, lose no money, focus on what's working, and double down on that. But also understand that sometimes there's cycles, especially if you're in the agricultural business, which we are an agricultural commodity, so you do have to expect that there's going to be some highs and lows. So we are trying to figure out ways to future-proof that. We're getting bigger freezer storage so we can store pecans longer, so we can buy them during good years. And pecans are cyclical too. They have bumper crops and they have bad crops. So during bumper crop, shore up. But I think just focusing on what's really working and do that. And the harder part of that for me in business is, and if you're gonna focus on what's working, that means you have to let go of what's not working. And if it's a family business, that's really hard because you get emotionally attached. And I had to let go of really focusing on the stores for now, which we don't own or operate anyway, but still if I won the lottery, I would invest in improving the stores, but I'm not there yet. I had to focus on what's working so I could make a profit, so I could continue to see the balance sheet in the black. Does that answer it?
Stephanie? First of all, congratulations.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm going to share a memory.
We were public defenders together.
Yes. In the 1970s, I think. No, you weren't in school yet then, sorry. I have a distinct memory, which you didn't mention, so I got to stick up for it. When we would go to Florida, and this was before the interstates, stop at Stuckey's. My favorite thing is you had for sale, or Stuckey's did. This is before you were born.
No, I was born.
The frog, figures of frogs playing a guitar.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm the archivist and I'm the keeper of Stuckey memories, and thank God my father is still very much alive. He's 86. I always have to pause because he rounds up his age every year, so he gets used to turning so like the day he turned 86, he started saying he was 87. But he's 86, and so I always use him for backup. And people always ask me about stuff, like the dunking birds is one I get a lot of questions about, the little bird that dunks. So the company that made that actually was based in Atlanta. They sold the company 3 years ago, a year before I bought Stuckey's, and had I still been around, had I known about it, I probably would have sunk my life savings into buying that one too. But there is a company that started making the dunking birds, so we buy those, and we cannot keep them in stock. People like them so much. And if anyone knows a source for the Wee Wee Willie, people ask about those. Does anyone know what the Wee Wee Willie is? It's kind of embarrassing. It's a plastic sculpture, and you pull his pants down, he pees in your face. So I am definitely not your typical Terry Third Thursday speecher, sorry. I don't think the CEO of Georgia Power talked about that. Anyone else?
Enjoyed listening and I know freestanding, but if you're looking to go in somewhere, would you want to go more like the traditional byways now, 1941, or do you think you're more likely to look at somewhere off the interstate, like in
Interstate.
my hometown of Perry? I think there's one that's currently
We
pretty
do
big.
have one in Perry, exit 136. I go there all the time. Yes. Yeah, my dream is to have a handful of very brand-forward corporate-owned stores. And they don't necessarily have to be on the interstate. They could be in an urban setting, but they still need to have that feel of celebrating the road trip as part of the theme, because that's so innate to our being of why we even exist. But I have a dream, and Moon Pie is my model. If you like moon pies, they make all their money from selling their product. They're 5th generation family member running it now, so that's really exciting. And they have 3 general stores that are very brand forward. So Moon Pie is kind of my example. And by the way, talking about social media, Moon Pie's Twitter feed is the best. So if you're interested in how corporations can do good social media, follow Moon Pie's Twitter feed. It's insanely good.
You talked a lot about lemons to lemonade, finding challenges and making them opportunities. How do you see yourself maintaining brand relevance with companies like Buc-ee's? They're all about hey,
Yeah.
I know it's probably a Voldemort type thing, but they're all about
Buc-ee's.
They're a destination on the interstate.
Yeah.
That's made them very successful. How do you see that as an opportunity in the market?
Yeah, so Buc-ee's, I get asked that a lot. Best advice I got on how you deal with competition was Sam Walton's book, Made in America. I've read it like 5 times. I love Sam Walton. And he actually gives in his book advice for how small town hardware stores and small town retail stores can be vibrant in the face of Walmart coming to their town. It's actually in his book. He tells you how to compete. And so I see us kind of like that. We're the small town hardware store, and Walmart comes to town. Well, Buc-ee's comes to town. Buc-ee's is a couple exits away from our Perry store. There's actually a little back history to Buc-ee's. I won't dwell on it too much because I want to be positive, but the owner of Buc-ee's used to own Stuckey's franchises. Buc-ee's, Stuckey's, I'll just leave it at that. So comparison is really flattering also. But what Sam Walton says is find your niche. Find what makes your brand unique and special and do that. So like my local Ace Hardware that I love, they have this whole barbecue section, and they have a great section if you're a bird watcher. They have all this bird feed and bird houses and everything. So you find like what's your little specialty, and you can't go to Walmart and find that, and you can't get the level of service, even if they have the nice greeters. You can't get that level of service. So you figure out like what's your niche, what makes you special, unique, and different, and do that. And not that you ignore the competition, but you don't obsess on the competition. And I'm not trying to compete with Buc-ee's. I'm trying to win the customer. And so I also had to embrace, which is hard for me, I think if you have a background in politics, you're naturally a people pleaser, but in business, you cannot be a people pleaser. And if you're in branding, you cannot be a people pleaser. You have to accept, this is my brand, this is what I stand for. Not everyone is going to like my brand. I just need enough people to like my brand that I will be profitable, and I'll continue to be profitable. So Stuckey's, we're about the road trip, we're about kitschy Americana, we sell pecan log rolls. Our niche is that we make our product ourselves now with 100% Georgia-grown pecans. It is absolutely the best product you will find anywhere. We have pecan snacks, we have raw pecans, we have in-shell pecans. We are pecan crazy. And no other brand is doing that. No other brand can own that they were the OG of roadside retail. So I just sort of embrace, this is what we are. And I talked to a guy the other day, and he said, I really don't like to road trip and I don't like candy. What do you say to me to get me to be your customer? And I said, I don't. You're not my customer. You're not my brand. It's like when I was in politics, I was a Democrat. I'm now more of an independent, but I wouldn't go knock on Republican doors. I'd shore up my base. I focus on the voters who are most likely to vote for me, and then I go to some of the undecideds and try to get the undecideds, but there's a certain segment that's never gonna like me, because that's not their cup of tea, and that's okay. So how we compete is we focus on our own game, we figure out what makes us unique, and we just hunker down on that. And yes, I do stop at Buc-ee's every chance I get, and I do observe. But they're huge. You have to have a GPS to find the bathroom. It's like 120 gas tanks. It's just, that's not us. We're gonna be more curated, more intimate, more special, more unique, more of a sense of place. So I hope enough people like stuff that will stay alive. Oh, and diversify. Duh. We sell product, we sell online. So the more different ways you can diversify your income streams, that'll help you stay afloat.
Hi, so I have actually have a question. I know that recently, of course, challenges in supply chain and everything.
Yes.
Is that something you guys are facing? And if
Yes.
so, how are you guys like trying to tackle, and what's your goal around?
I don't have a good answer to that. We are just mucking through it. One of my mentors in the Georgia legislature, Mary Margaret Oliver, when I would get distressed, she would say, mush on. You know, I just remember her saying that. I was like, almost like a dog, you know, mush on. So we're just mushing through it, but we've had incredible supply chain challenges. We had an absolute disaster where we ordered packaging from China. It got caught in that Panama Canal snafu. Took forever. It was supposed to come in 3 months. It came in 9 months. So then we decided to go with an American manufacturer, and we were rushing it, and we wanted new, thicker packaging. And when it came, we had so many back orders that we just ran a bunch of orders and shipped them out, not realizing that the new, thicker packaging was not allowing some of the chemical, like there was an adhesive that stuck the layers together to make the packaging thicker, and it wasn't off-gassing, and so all those, all the adhesive smell was trapped inside the packaging. So you would open up our Divinity, and pecans are very absorbent. They will capture the smell and taste. They will absorb the taste of anything they're around. So don't put pecans next to fish in your freezer, for example. Your pecans will taste like fish. So our pecans tasted like glue. It was not a health issue. But so I've learned more about product recall than I ever want to know in my life, but it was a withdrawal, not a recall. And it cost us over $50,000. We had to hire attorneys to make sure we were legal compliance. We had to issue credits. We had to get our sales reps to withdraw product from the stores. We had to throw away tens of thousands of pieces of candy. We were suddenly, during Q4, when we should have been selling all our product, we were completely backlogged. We did not have pralines or Divinity or Gophers, which are our chocolate treats, have any of that for Q4. That's why I was selling mystery boxes. I had nothing else to sell but ashtrays shaped like toilets. And we made it, we ended profitable. So you just mush on. I say all that to say the lesson we learned, we had an exec team meeting about that yesterday, is the second you think something might be wrong, and we had an inkling because we were like, oh, this smells kind of funny. Oh, we've got 50 orders to fill. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Pay attention to the little things because they will become big things. And I will never again have something kind of small go, oh, that's not a big deal. Because it can be a really big deal. Little deals can become big deals, and then they become crisis. So we're just mushing through. We have 6 people out with COVID right now. We're in small town Georgia where a lot of people don't want to be vaccinated, and it's a problem.
Stephanie, I've really enjoyed your presentation. It's been a real trip down memory lane.
Thank you.
Not to mention the highway, but I do see a parallel between you and Stetson Bennett for some reason.
Oh, gosh, I love him. Yeah, I know some Georgia fans are kind of mixed on him, but I think he's an amazing comeback story.
Yeah, it's been great. One question I've got, I've actually got 3, but now that Georgia Bulldogs are much more of a brand name nationwide, do you foresee an explosion in sales of Georgia Bulldogs logo merchandise?
Good question. We only have a handful of locations in Georgia. If we can get our hands on it, I mean, that's part of the problem is supply chain.
Gotcha.
If the price is right.
Yeah.
Because we have to have our distribution center markup, and then our stores do their markup. And so it's all about pricing and volume and quantity. I'm learning so much. When I bought this company, I didn't know what a point of sale was. I didn't know what a gondola rack is. I didn't understand distribution versus wholesale. So if the price is right, yes.
Oh, well, the other 2 other questions is, I'm a finance guy, so can you divulge the total revenues of the company?
Well, we're waiting on the year-end numbers. We're hoping to hit $5 million in gross sales.
Nice.
And when I bought the company, even though we were operating at a deficit, we had gross sales. So we were almost at $2 million when I bought the company.
Wow.
So, but I don't know for sure. If you're in finances, you can appreciate this. We bought a company that had been around since 1935, so 2 years longer than Stuckey's, and they were keeping their books pen and ink ledger. Well, it was three companies that had a fundraising business, shelling business, and a candy plant. And the candy plant was on an accounting system that was different from ours. And so we've had to get the hand ledger and then the candy plant system and our system, Stuckey's, and my business partner had a company that merged with ours, Front Porch Pecans. So really 4. We had to merge accounting for 4 companies, and it's taken us a year. And we should finally have the final combined consolidated books by the end of the week. So ask me next week.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a pain. I don't think people know, like, when companies merge and you see these press releases, it's like, yay, this is great. You don't realize, like, it takes forever to really merge. Like, minor things like, well, they're actually big things. What item numbers do we use? What inventory system do we use? We're on accrual basis, they're on cash basis. All that is really hard.
You bet.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the other things you've got going on with turning the company.
I got a
around.
crash course MBA in real life.
Well, the third and final question is, are the pecan suppliers major companies that operate in Georgia, or are they independents or a combination?
Everything. And 100% Georgia. We're Georgia Grown certified through the Georgia Department of Ag. All local farmers.
Who are some of the larger local farmers these days.
Oh, we'd have to ask the shelling plant manager. He knows all of them.
Oh, yeah.
I do know Hardy Farms. We work with them. Lane Southern Orchards. If you buy if you pull over at Lane, all their pecan snacks and their candies, we private label that for them. So we private label. So we make product for other companies and put their name on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Good. Thank you.
yeah. Not yet. Timing is everything. I stupidly, when I first took over the company, I'm like, let's go for Cracker Barrel. We were not ready yet. We got rejected. So I want to try again with Cracker Barrel. What I would like to do is be able to private label their pecan log roll. It is currently made by a competitor, and it's not as good. It does not have maraschino cherries, and it's not rolled in caramel. And we make our caramel from scratch. We make our nougat from scratch. Our pecans are the freshest. So our product will blow theirs out of the water. I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. It's true. So we just need to be ready, because if we get a Cracker Barrel deal, we got to be able to produce. I think that's one of the most naive things I hear entrepreneurs say. Like, I'm this experienced person now, but they'll be like, oh, I can't wait to be in Walmart. I'm like, that's your worst nightmare. Can you fulfill? Can you keep up with production? And they demand really, really tough margins. All those big chains want tight margins. So you've got to produce at high volume, low price. So we're not there yet. We're investing in a 6-figure extruder machine that will enable us to go from 400 pecan log rolls a day to 4,000. When we get that in operation, I'm ready for Cracker Barrel. Bring it on. So.
That was terrific.
Thank you.
And one tradition we have is we like to give our Terry Third Thursday speakers a token or a keepsake as a token of our appreciation.
Yay.
So this is a glass sculpture by Loretta Eby.
Oh, thank you. That's
You're welcome.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Go dogs.
Go Dogs. Thanks. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And don't forget to validate your parking on the way out. See you next time.